Britain has a seaman problem. Now, Britain used to have the best seamen in the world. Our seamen would go from continent to continent and it could not be stopped. If you ever saw British seamen, it might fill your heart with pride, it might fill your heart with fear, but you know, when you saw British seamen, something was about to happen. Now, I do apologise, I'm not talking about sperm today, I'm in fact talking about Navy personnel. So, in recent weeks, there's been a lot of chat about our seamen, and today we're going to go into a bit more detail and find out more about it. So, if you like this stuff, please like, comment, feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, let's get into it. So, before we kind of analyse our seamen, I just want to have a quick look at sort of some basic compositions of the Navy. So, for those that aren't aware, the Navy is a armed service. So, within there, you've got different ranks. The top rank, or one of the top ranks, is Admiral. So an Admiral is a senior naval officer of the highest rank, typically commanding entire fleets or major naval divisions, equivalent to a general in an army. So when you think of generals like Alexander, Sun Tzu, all the good ones, Hannibal, they're commanding huge armies. They'll have lieutenants to pass orders to. Each unit will have like a captain or a company commander. So that's sort of what we're looking at, sort of chat. Why do I mention that? Because in today's Navy standards, we currently have 134 admirals or flag officers. Now, a flag officer, pretend you're watching Pirates of the Caribbean, okay? They can't text, they haven't got radios. Instead, to communicate each other from ship to ship, they would wave different flags, okay? If you've ever seen any sort of really, like, good medieval movies, you'll see that they've got banners, they wave flags to give commands, things like that, okay? Because you can see a flag from far away. So, we've got 134 flags and officers and admirals, and reports around us, we've got 40 to 41, so that's 40, core admirals, so that's rear admirals and above. Okay, so these are like the big cheeses. So as you can see, these are the ones who are commanding entire fleets, commanding maybe a few boats. Really important people, heroes of the nation. We're going to quickly look at one admiral and kind of see what one admiral can do. So for those that don't know, there was this thing called the Battle of the Nile. Now this was during the Napoleonic Wars. I think this was Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson. Cool guy, wasn't he? Essentially, he battered the French at Nile, at Egypt, and the result of this victory basically meant that England had controlled the Mediterranean and the French could just sit back and do nothing. Back then, the French army was pretty unstoppable under Napoleon, until, Waterloo. So we had to really kind of dick them at the sea just to otherwise they would have invaded England. And there were plans for that, Trafalgar. But anyway, the reason I'm mentioning this, you had Horatio Nelson, and of course he was the Vice Admiral at the time. He became a Lord after this battle. He had 14 ships to the line, so these were the big old ships, and one sloop, that was just a little guy to hang around with. Obviously, he would have had like flag officers, he would have had captains on each ship. It wasn't just one admiral doing all the work. But essentially, that was him. He was controlling 14 ships at a line, and there are some videos about this. I would recommend you go watch them because it was awesome how we battered the French every time. Agincourt, Waterloo, the Nile, Trafalgar. These guys just can't get a break. Yeah, so great, wasn't it? One admiral, one vice admiral, 14 ships at a line. So we've got 40 of the guys, or at least 134 flag officers as well included. So you're probably thinking, right, if one admiral back in, 1798, commanded 14 ships plus the sloop, what are these 40 to 41 admirals controlling at the moment? Guess? Well, the answer is 15. That's right. At the moment, the Royal Navy has 15 surface warships, so that is 7 frigates, 6 destroyers, and 2 aircraft carriers. We currently have as many ships as Nelson had in one battle during the Napoleonic Wars. not to mention the other fleets that the British Navy had at the time. Now, I'm going to be generous. Warfare has changed. We don't need as many warships because now we've got aircraft, because they didn't have aircraft back then, obviously. We've got long-range missiles. We've got all sorts of wonderful stuff. But by the sounds of it, the Admiral is meant to kind of cover a fleet. We have one fleet. If we're being generous, we can split it into two, maybe. So, yeah. What's happened to our seamen? We would probably expect to have a lot more seamen, wouldn't we? But we don't. We've got 10 submarines. We've got underwater seamen. Because we know how good seamen is once it gets in the water, aren't we? So, yeah, that's a kick in the teeth. So, why have I brought this up? It's a very long-winded way to actually get to my point. Because in the last month, USA have been attacking Iran. And Trump says, come on, UK, come do your part. You've got bases over there. I won't go into all that, why they won't let us use their, but we won't let them use our bases. But Starmer turns around and goes, no, it's not in our national interest to take part. Well, the truth of the matter is, we couldn't. No, I'm not listening to him. Sir Ben Wallace, who was the ex-defence minister under the Tories, basically said, we actually can't go help in Iran because we don't have the ships to do it. At the moment, I think we can send one aircraft carrier, but we don't have enough ships to support it. So support vessels, they basically go around, it's basically like a shark with lots of little fish around it, okay? We need support ships around the big one, essentially to stop small boats getting towards it, all sorts of other things I can imagine. I'm not a seaman, so I don't actually know. So we only had one thing that we could actually send, we couldn't even send it. We actually had one, I think it was a frigate, or a destroyer, in Portsmouth, HMS Dragon, couldn't actually leave the dock because apparently the workers have now unionised and they only work 9 to 5 weekdays. So that's good. And so, yeah, Trump's not happy with us. So no one's happy with Starmer. So I mean, look at that face. God, poor mother. Now, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Now you can obviously say, okay, because we don't want to take part in the bombing of Iran, that makes sense. Okay, that's fine. So let's consider another enemy, because they are enemies. Russia. Now, Russia, since its war started against Ukraine in 2022, has been sanctioned heavily by the Western world. Now, part of this sanctioning is people not being able to buy sort of oil and gas from them. So what Russia have developed are things called shadow fleets. It's basically where they've got a bunch of big tankers and they try and sneak them around and get their oil out. Britain has confiscated multiples of these, and we basically said to Russia, if you sail any of these through the channel, we're going to take them. So Russia's like, okay, what I'm going to do instead is send a warship with it. So Russia has sent oil tankers through the English Channel. Now the English Channel is basically the last line of British defence. It stopped Hitler, it stopped Napoleon. Can't stop boat people, but, 2 out of 3 ain't so bad. And then he sent a warship with it. Basically say, you want to try take these, have at it. What was the British response? We followed them with a tiny little warship behind them. So that's just basically proving we can't defend ourselves. I was reading in an article that there was a NATO exercise and Britain had no warships, so we had to borrow one from the Germans. As you do. So, essentially, guys, we have a seaman problem. We don't have enough seamen, okay? We need to get more seamen. I don't know where you get more seamen from. I've heard some people say there's an alley somewhere in Bournemouth that you can get seamen, no problem, but not going down there. But essentially, what Britain have done is we've outsourced our defence to basically USA as part of NATO. Trump's turned around and said, no, you can't be doing that anymore. And Britain is an island nation, okay? That is a huge benefit that people don't realise. It's meant to make it much more difficult for people to come and attack us. And one of the first things that you want to do with that is fill it with warships. So we don't have any warships, or we do, but they're all kind of being retrofitted or they're not serviceable. We've got bases all over the world, like Diego Garcia in the British Indian Ocean. We can't patrol them. Cyprus, we can't patrol that. So yeah, it's a problem. Now, just a little add-on to this. The reason it's kind of a bit more prevalent, we can't defend ourselves. And in the last 48 hours, there's been some news reports that Britain is to set itself into a transition for a war footing, which essentially is saying that potentially we could be looking at sort of law being changed and conscription becoming available, and that's going to suck. So imagine if you don't really care about any of this, sooner or later, there's a very good chance you're going to get conscripted and you're going to be sent off to go fight a war that potentially you don't really care about. Secondly, if you're a woman, don't worry, you're going to avoid this. But if all the British men get sent away, you're going to be left alone here with all the boat people. So, and if you've seen any news reports recently, you're not in safe hands. But otherwise, guys, that's it for today. We need more seamen. We don't have enough seamen. Let's go get more seamen. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.